Hello everyone, and welcome to session related to Accounting Hub Cloud. This session is more related to a consulting solution to a typical business requirement which I came across recently during my Accounting Hub Cloud implementation. So wanted to share my experience with you all so that if you also get this kind of business requirement, then probably this video may be of your help. So let's get started. And before I would like to state, I would like to mention that this video will be helpful for you if you know basics of the Accounting Hub Cloud. Because in this session we are not going to discuss the basics of the Accounting Hub Cloud. Rather, we are going to discuss how we can map a business scenario, a typical business scenario in Accounting Hub. Having said that, let's start. So the title of this video is Configuring Accounting Hub Cloud to stop creating future or X number of old age journal. So as we know, the positioning of Accounting Hub Cloud in Fusion Financial Institutes is as following. Accounting Hub Cloud is a module in Fusion Financials where we load transaction from a transactional system, be it legacy or any Oracle standard transaction system, and those transactions are accounted in Accounting Hub Cloud based on rules configured in Accounting Hub Cloud, and then those accountings are transferred to GL for further processing. With that brief of Accounting Hub Cloud, let us understand what is the business requirement we are talking here. The business requirement is as follows. Accounting from Accounting Hub Cloud means accounting generated in Accounting Hub Cloud should not be future dated, or it should not be more than X number of days old. In place of X, you can put any number as per the organization policy. To explain it, let me take an example. Assume the current date is 9th December 2020 and value for X is 2 here. So if we load a AHC transaction with below accounting / transaction date, then the outcome of the accounting generated from Accounting Hub Cloud for those transactions should be as mentioned respectively. Let me explain this. So assume on 9th of December, if we are running the create accounting for a transaction where the transaction date or the accounting date is 10th December, then this transaction, or rather accounting of this transaction, should not be transferred to GL. Why? Because it's future dated. Assume we have another transaction which has accounting date or the transaction date is 9th of December 23. Then when we account this transaction in Accounting Hub, that transaction should be transferred to GL because it is neither future dated nor it's more than 2 days old. Similarly, for 8th December, it should get transferred to GL. But if we get a transaction dated 7th of December 23, then it should not be transferred to GL. Why? Because it's more than 2 days old than the current date, then the day where I'm creating the account, and so on and so forth. So I hope the business requirement is clear and understood. This is a typical business requirement, and this kind of business requirement you may get for financial institutions, mainly banks. Having said that, now let us understand how we can map this requirement. There can be different ways of mapping it, like few customizations in preprocessor, which we generally do. But let us understand what best we can do to achieve this by doing available configuration in Accounting Hub Cloud. So the approach what we have taken is as follows. First, define user-defined formula. We call it, in short, this is called UDF. So the one UDF we define as compare. You can give any other name, but I have named it as compare here. Now this user defined formula is to find difference between date when we are running the create accounting, in our example, which is 9th of December, and the accounting date of the transaction, which is either 10th of December, 9th of December, 8th of December, depending on which transaction we are counting. So this UDF will be used to compare that date, and if it is future dated or if it is more than X number of days, then stamp the value for this particular variable as N. Otherwise, make it Y. This is one UDF. Second UDF, invalid currency. Just like any other currency code, but it should be invalid. For example, we know GBP is a valid currency. So I have set the value for this UDF as GB. So it is not a valid currency. So that's why the value for the invalid currency UDF is GB, which is invalid. Now, let us understand how we are going to use these two attributes in our configuration in Accounting Hub. Next, to use this UDF defined in Accounting Hub Cloud, we are going to define a journal line rule. Let's name that journal line rule. In short, we call it GLR as non-postable. You can name it anything else, any other thing as well, but we have named it as non-postable here. Now this GLR will be valid only in the condition when value for compare is N, and entered currency accounting attribute for this GLR we set as invalid currency. By having this configuration, we will be able to achieve the business requirement which we just described. Now let us see how this can be done. So what will happen that when we run the create accounting, let us say we are running the create accounting for the transaction which had the transaction date as 10th of December. Now for that, AHC will derive value for compare by comparing the date of create accounting and the accounting select transaction date. So the example which we took 10th of December, for that value for compare will come as N. Now, if the value for compare is Y, the general line rule then postable will not be picked up. Why? Because the condition for this GLR is value for compare should be N, right? But if it is N, which will be in the case as I'm explaining right now, if the transaction date is 10th of December and the date when I'm running the create accounting is 9th of December, then value for compare will be N. So in that case, when the value for compare is N, then the journal line non-postable will be picked up by the create accounting, and additional journal line with invalid currency, because we have set the entered currency for the JLR as invalid currency. So system, when we run the create accounting, it will pick the non-postable journal line if value for compare is N and currency for that line will be an invalid currency. And hence the transaction, or rather the accounting for that transaction will become invalid and it will become non-postable to GL. So this is the whole approach we could think of for the business requirement which we came across. Now, I hope the approach is clear. Now let us test this in system. So as I said, define two UDF. So one UDF I have defined here. In valid currency, you can see the value for this is GB. And we have another UDF, which is compare, where we are comparing the date on which the create accounting is ran and the accounting date of the transaction which we are accounting. Now those UDF are used in a GLR which we have defined here. So we defined a GLR named non-postable. You can name this any other thing as well. What is the condition for this? Condition is value for compare is n. Means if the value for compare is n, then only this GLR will be picked up. Otherwise, it will not be picked up. Means in the valid cases, like if it is not future dated or it is not more than X number days old, then value for compare will be Y. And in that case, this GLR will not be. So condition are given, compare is equal to n, and I put another additional condition, line number 1. This you may give, you may not give, depending on the choice. The second part, the line number is equal to 1. You may opt to give. I have given because I did not want to put load on the accurate accounting, because by doing so, what will happen that this rule will be picked up only for the first line. And by doing so, we will be reducing the load in the create account. So this will work even if you do not put the condition line number is equal to 1 if you do not put. In that case also, the business mapping will work. Main important thing is the condition compare is equal to n. This should be there. So for this GLR, then we set the intercurrency accounting attribute as invalid currency. So this is what the configuration, the additional configuration what we have to map the business requirement. Now let us test this, test our configuration with some test data. So to verify the configuration, I am creating 4 transactions here. The first transaction has a transaction date as 10th of December, as I explained in the business requirement slide. So this is a future dated transaction because today's date is 9th of December. I am going to run the create accounting on 9th of December. So based on that, this transaction will be a future dated transaction. And so this accounting for this transaction should become invalid so that it should not get posted to GL. Or rather, it should not get transferred to GL. Second is 9th December. So this is a current date transaction. So it should get transferred to GL. Third is 8th December. This also should get transferred to GL because it's not more than 2 days old. Fourth transaction is 7th December. Now this should not get posted because it's more than 2 days old. In summary, first transaction should not get posted, rather should not get transferred to GL because it's a future dated. Fourth transaction should not get transferred to GL because it's an older transaction. But the second transaction and the third transaction should get posted because it's neither future dated nor more than 2 days old. So that's what the expectation. So I created the data, uploaded to accounting hub, ran the import accounting transaction program, and this is what the output of the create accounting. We can see here 2 transactions got processed, 2 went into error. You can see the error here. This is the first transaction and the fourth transaction. It went into invalid state. And this is the detail because as we know, we deliberately created a JLR which has invalid currency. That's why this is the error message. Let us see the details of the accounting. So this is the first transaction which was future dated here. This is the additional line, invalid line, which we deliberately created to make the accounting invalid. For the help of user, you can put some custom message here. I have put a custom message here like this age transaction is 0 year, 0 month and -1 days. That means it's future dated old. As per corporate policy, and so on and so forth, you can put some custom message here for the user to understand why it's invalid. Similarly, you can see the fourth transaction which had the date of 7th December. This also got into error. It's in error, so it will not be transferred to GL, and that is what is the business. this is the accounting for the second and third transaction, and this accounting got created in the class of interest. So this is the way we could map the business requirement by using the AH configuration. So this is what I wanted to share with all of you. I hope this helps. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.